The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why the actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations. That's more.
Good morning and welcome back to the Blueprint Podcast with Lowe's Moore. Hey, as you guys know, this is our special edition for 4th of July. And I realize that everybody's going to be all weekend long celebrating 4th of July. We started, I guess we started Thursday, and we're still in it. We had lasagna, I think, on Thursday for dinner. Then last night we had Taco Friday. And then today we're doing little old traditional stuff, hamburgers, hot dogs. And then tomorrow we have a seafood fest tomorrow. And then Monday we have a barbecue. So, and I'm taping this morning. We're on from 9 to 10:30. I'm taping from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm down here with my brothers. Everybody's down here. And, man, my brother has a nice porch over there. But he put in this sprinkler system. And if I had sat out on that porch and I was looking forward to in the rocking chair and just kind of chilling out and doing the show. But right now I would be sprayed with some water. So I brought it inside the garage. So we're in Fayetteville, North Carolina, celebrating 4th of July. Let me shout that out now. Happy 4th of July to all you who are viewing this morning or viewing in the future. So again, let me get right into this thing here. I don't have my pebble to drop in the pond so that we would have a ripple effect, because I left my pebble back in Mount Vernon. So, but anyway, I'm gonna act like I dropped that pebble, and I'm expecting a ripple effect of this show, this interview this morning. And again, this is a special celebration of the Blueprint Podcast for 4th of July. So let's get rolling. Let's start with the books of the week. Yeah, we got the books of the week. Mr. Brandon Steiner, the business playbook. I'm going to jump over to You've Got to Have Balls, and then I'm going to jump back to the middle, Living on Purpose, because I didn't read the other two, but I have read Living on Purpose, and that word purpose is one of my most important words in my life, because if you don't have a purpose, a life without purpose is lost. I mean, you've got to have purpose. You got to know what your purpose is. And this is a fantastic book. Actually, Mr. Steiner gave us a bunch of books at the Boys and Girls Club, and we were able to give them out to a number of teens. And we've had in the past a tremendous response about their love for this book. Man, Living on Purpose. And that's one of my favorite sayings. So that's the book of the week. And now we're working on the word of the week, right? Living a life of purpose. Living is the key, right? Some people think they have purpose, right? But they don't know what it is to actually live a life of purpose. So living is important. Some people just sit around, man, no dreams, no hopes, no desires, no goals, right? They're living. They're not really living, right? But you should be living on purpose, right? And you got to live it, right? You can't just talk about it, but you got to put it into action. And so here's my affirmation, the Pierce Harper affirmation moment and quote, right? And it comes again from Mr. Brandon Steiner. The biggest factor in your success is your willingness to make it happen, right? Your willingness to make it happen. You got to make it happen. Just the same as the word of the week, right? You got to be living. right? You can't just be thinking about living. You actually got to put something into the into life. You got to work. And then this week's music of the week, right? And movie of the week, Pharrell Williams, Happy, man. And what's living a life without being happy? I mean, whatever you do, you got to find something that you love to do. You have to be happy, right? That's important, man, because you can live a life and not be happy, but you got to be happy. And that's one of my phone. I have a number of songs. Don't worry, be happy, right? And then Happy, I got a number of songs that pick me up. And then Tony Robbins, right, has a Netflix documentary, right, on our entire life changes in a moment, right? And he's stating, I am not your guru, right? And that's a good one to pick up on Netflix. And, hey, that's my movie of the week and music of the week. And, those are all encouraging and motivational things, which I expect that this morning, right? This morning, this is going to be really about encouragement, all the things I just finished talking about. I want to say hello to my wife. She said, hey, hi, Bae. Well, good morning, Bae. So coming to get you tomorrow. So get ready. But now, let me again say it. I got my 4th of July shout out, right? Happy 4th of July again. This is, for me, it's all about family, right? When we have these holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Labor Day, all the holidays, man, I love being with family. So happy 4th of July. Enjoy it and stay safe. And so let us jump right into this highlight, and then we'll get going.
Let's go ahead and bring in Steiner Sports CEO, Brandon Steiner.
We went to Brandon Steiner, one of the country's top memorabilia moguls.
I have an unbelievable guest, Brandon Steiner.
Steiner Sports has established itself as the premier name in sports marketing and sports memorabilia.
I mean, you got some of the biggest names in sports that have trusted you.
I think Brandon's second to none. Steiner Sports is second to none.
Having someone like Brandon that you can count on, he's professional. He stands by his word.
I was looking for a business partner. I was looking for someone who I could associate myself with, and that's what I found in Steiner.
He's done an amazing job. He's kind of set the standard. He brought it to a different level. He had the eye of, the dirt. Who would have thought about dirt? Well, he did.
You must be sad there's no dirt to sell.
Yeah, but we're going to sell the court.
I wanted to give you that respect that you really know the game inside and out, but also you know how to play the game.
You think you can beat him in a race with the ball down this court?
Seriously, right now, I still hoop 3 times a week.
How can you do the most amount? How can I be more productive? How can I get more done?
Where is your time going? Where is your money going? And is it smart? Because if you want to be more productive, you may be wasting some of your money on things you shouldn't be. More importantly, you may be wasting some of your time.
I never ever start negotiating my most important points until I've really got an understanding what the other person wants.
Are you really thinking about what that person needs and how, more importantly, they need to receive it? It's critical in the process. And that value proposition for me has made me millions and millions of dollars.
My whole thing is the first 90 seconds in my day is critical. I don't want to waste a second, not 1 second. There's 2 types of underdog. There's the spectator and the participant. You got to decide which story you have, and can you have the balls to rewrite your story. You're part of an industry. You want to leave that industry better than when you found it. Do as much as you can for as many people as you can, as often as you can, and expect nothing back. And I ask all of you, it's like, what is that thing that you're hoping? What is the thing you're dreaming? And what's holding you back?
Are you still as passionate today as you were?
I'm driven now because I just think there's the possibility that maybe the Steiner thing goes past, maybe it's bigger than me. I'm not going to watch this game. I'm going to play in this game no matter what it takes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's okay to call you Brandon.
Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. And
yeah.
I know Living on Purpose was your favorite book, but You Gotta Have Balls was, I just want to make sure I clear one thing up, and that's my mother's favorite line. That was something that a line that we used a lot as growing up, which was you gotta have balls, be fearless. Don't be afraid to follow things all the way through. Don't stop halfway. Don't be afraid to be a little disruptive. And that was my mother's line. She was a little bit of a woman ahead of her time back in the 60s and 70s. And, yeah, it's also one of my favorite books. So The Living on Purpose is probably my best book as far as just chock full of nuggets. But anyway, the book is free if you go on my website for all of you. I just pay for the shipping, and it's a book worth reading, especially if you're a husband out there. You need if you have a husband or you are a husband, phenomenal tips on how to be a better husband without it being over the top. It was one of my goals when I wrote Living on Purpose, was to be a better husband, better father, better person, because I kind of mastered the art of making a lot of money. That was easy, although I talk about how to make more money too. Because listen, look, that's what people want. They want to lose weight. They want to be, they want to be better. Want to have a better connection to God, I think, and they want to make a lot of money. Those are like the three topics that seem to be pretty hot. So I kind of focused in on that for the book because I thought that would help sell the book the best. Unfortunately, in order to lose weight, you probably got to cut off an arm if you're going to do something quick. That doesn't make sense. You want to get close to God, you're probably going to have to die. And I don't think anybody wants to do that quite yet. You want to make a lot of money, find a rich relative, man, hope they croak. And then you can pick up the inheritance or buy a lottery ticket. And then we know that that's probably not likely. So read the book, and I'll give you all little tips of how you can get to all three extraordinary levels.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for particularly books on purpose, right? Dr. Miles Monroe, The Pursuit of Purpose. I mean, he's got a number of, books on the purpose of a man, purpose of a woman. I mean, everything is purpose, purpose, purpose. And so I think that word is just powerful. I
think Viktor Frankl is The Meaning of Life.
Yes.
That's one of the most intense, if you really want to dig into it. That's a book that, you may need to take some time reading, but great book and really getting underneath, why we're really here and what it's all about, which frankly, most people avoid because they get caught up in all the clutter. I think the happy thing, I heard your introduction, and just to get right to it, I mean, well, first of all, it doesn't really matter where you're at. The only thing that matters is what you want to accept. And if you can increase your level of non-acceptance, now you're on your way to potential higher level success, maybe even extraordinary. And then you can throw some happiness in there, because, I mean, happy, like, I don't know, it's a little bit of an overused, kind of confusing word. Happy is like being challenged. Happy is finding a way to help others. Those are things that bring happiness. Connecting and communicating in a really good, consistent way with the people that matter and you love the most. Those are, you start doing that, probably going to find, some happy moments. But, truth of the matter is, do you really want to be happy all the time? I mean, I don't know. Like, I think, like, the pain and the grind and anything great that's ever happened has been when you've been in complete. Well, first of all, everything great that happens usually starts with something bad. I mean, think about some of the worst things that happen to you, and it usually leads to something great. You get fired, all of a sudden you get this brand new job that's 10 times better. Break up with that boyfriend who's a rotten scoundrel anyway. You meet a really nice guy. It's like, so, life is kind of tricky. But I think challenge and growth, learning really does as a common denominator for, some joy and happiness.
Well, yeah. I mean, even when you think about, my wife can probably attest to this a little bit more, is, giving birth, right? You go through a 9-month or more process of being uncomfortable, right? And you're uncomfortable with her. And all of a sudden, this person comes, right? And you forget about, well, I don't know about her, but I kind of forget about the process, right? Because now your child is here. I just noticed my wife and the 4 children we had. I just knew at the end, after the first one, I just knew at the end there was going to be some happiness, at the end. There's
Well,
going to be some
children are
excitement.
amazing. But what's it? First of all, you weren't unhappy and uncomfortable alongside of her. Let's not.
Oh, no, wasn't
Let's
that?
not get carried away.
No, I wasn't unhappy.
You felt some of that uncomfortability. Most women would say, like, but on the other hand, they did a study. This is a perfect example. They did a study at Stanford, and they put a marshmallow on a table, and they brought 5-year-olds in, and they told the 5-year-old, "Do not eat that marshmallow until I come back." Truth of the matter is, they never came back into the room. And what they did is, 5-year-old to 5-year-old, they measured the length of time it took till finally the kid ate the marshmallow, and then they tracked that kid years and years to come. And they found a very, very solid course of the kids that waited the longest to eat the marshmallow were far more successful than the kids that ate the marshmallow right away. And the thing that we just really struggle with, especially in this day and age where everybody wants immediate gratification, they want it now. Like it, love it, click it. But the truth of the matter is that the best things that come are the things that are worth waiting for, the things you work really hard for, and the things that most importantly you have patience to develop. When you want a high level of extraordinary success, generally, almost all the time, it's a long-term process to get there. And if you have the patience and consistency to work hard at it, you can do some really amazing things, given all the things that God has given us to do. But most people don't realize and appreciate all that's given us. And then, the short-term happiness, which is very common, especially in this day and age, occurs. So, you think about a simple test like that marshmallow, but question is, what's the marshmallow in your life? And are you really being patient, for whether it be that person you're waiting to ask you to marry you, the house that you ultimately wanted, the corner office that you're looking to get, the raise, how patient really are you, and what are you willing to do consistently to ensure and to move towards, hitting those goals and achieving those things that you want.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you 100%. Let's digress for a moment, because you didn't, like you said, you didn't just jump over to Brandon Steiner we know today, right? So there had to be a process. Can you talk a little bit about how it all started, mom and dad, and that whole process?
Well, it's funny. I went back to Coney Island on Thursday. It was my birthday, and somehow I talked this at 539 Kings Highway. I talked the landlord into letting me into my old apartment, which I wanted my son to see. He's 30. I grew up in a 600 square foot apartment with 2 brothers. I got evicted from my childhood, and pretty much at an early age. We had heat in the summer and air conditioning in the winter in my apartment. We grew up extremely poor. My mom was a fan of living in a more upscale, middle income neighborhood, but it's tough when you're the poorest kid in the neighborhood. But she thought that, being around smarter, wealthier, less kids that would maybe get in trouble, which, by the way, is somewhat delusional because you always find trouble in every neighborhood. But that was a thought that my mother had. I lived over at Glatt Kosher Butcher. For those of you not understand what Glatt Kosher is, it's the highest level of kosher. So they killed the chickens underneath my window. And they chopped their heads off. That's kind of my alarm clock in the morning. And it wasn't. Really took till I was in 5th grade to realize how poor I was. Because as a kid, you don't realize, you don't really know what you have and don't have till the 5th grade teacher, Mr. Kerper, called me up to the front of the class and gave me an envelope of money. Now I'm 10 years old, and he gives me this envelope of money. He says, we collected some money for you to buy some clothes. And I said, well, how do you know I need clothes? He goes, you're wearing the same pants for 3 weeks in a row. I said, how do you know that? He goes, well, you have a rip in the right knee. I went home. I said to my mom, I said, a little embarrassed, but, I guess we need to go buy some clothes. She said, oh, no, you give that money back. We're fine. You're just in between sizes. And, I went back to my room, and I realized that was bull. And I went into my mother's room, and I said, Mom, you don't have to worry about me anymore. I'm going to go get a job on Saturday, and I'll take care of myself. And if I have extra money, I'll give it to you to help the family. I can't even imagine what my mother was thinking when I walk in the room and tell her that. Not to mention waking up on Saturday. And in Brooklyn there's a street called King's Highway. It's miles long.
Oh, yeah.
With retail stores on both sides. And I got to tell you, I have kids. A 10-year-old just waking up on his own and going out on his own and going to store and asking, can you hire me? Is something I could do? Or jobs, whatever, is really mind-boggling to me.
Yes, it is.
I look at it almost comparable to like Wayne Gretzky skating at the age of 3. Think about it. I look at 10-year-olds and I'm like, I know if I get them up, maybe they get dressed or maybe they go down and have breakfast on their own is a huge accomplishment. Well, anyway, I find a job, Freddie the Fruit Man. And, I'm 63 and 53 years later, I've been working every day since. And the message I want to convey to anybody listening out there is listen, I don't recommend a 10-year-old go out to the streets and work in this day and age. It's probably an adverse situation that I got myself into. And I responded to it. But the one thing I will say is that, are you accountable? I think the moral of that lesson, when I realized, hey, your circumstances don't dictate who you are. My circumstances suck, but I was a valuable person, worthwhile human being, and I think I had all the potential in the world. The question is, are you accountable for your circumstances, and what are you going to do about it? Or are you just using the fact that my dad left my mom when they were 4 and we were poor? Are you going to use that as an excuse? Right? Or are you going to do something about it and be accountable and take control of your life? And my answer to that question is, listen, you can pay it now or you can pay it later, but at some point you're going to have to take responsibility for who you are, what you are, and the circumstance that you were presented in. And then again, back to it's all according to what you want to accept. And I was like, I'm not accepting being this poor and not having money for food or not having money for clothes. I'm doing something about it. And I'm definitely part of that deal is I'm buying my Clyde Pumas, which was a big deal to me, man. You walk in the schoolyard with some cheap ass Boac sneakers. You're like, that's not going to work. So part of my deal was when I started working, I'm like, I got to get those 1999 Clyde Pumas or the Adidas Superstars, which was, that was a big deal when you walked in with those kind of, kicks.
Yeah. Well, you had some colors. Did Clyde have some colors then? Were they different colors?
Oh, yeah. Mine was the blue suede. I wore blue suede. I had these gold suede with a black stripe.
Oh, yes.
Up until recently, I gave my son-in-law, I had a blue pair of Clyde Pumas in my closet, which is crazy. Like my closet's like the size of my bedroom growing up, which kind of keeps me in perspective. And recently I gave him these Clyde Pumas. I said, I know this doesn't mean a lot to you. I'm giving you these sneakers, but I just want you to remember, accountability and, getting what you want isn't as hard as you think. You just got to work hard for it. And that's what these blue Clyde Pumas represent. And I've had a great relationship with Clyde throughout the years. And what's great about Clyde is very similarly, nobody handed him anything. He wasn't born on third base either, man. He worked his way all the way through extremely tough circumstances. So we always love sharing those stories.
Yeah, and he was my favorite player. I don't know his game was nice.
Oh, yeah.
His defense was nice. Offense was nice.
His defense was amazing.
Nice.
He had a triple-double in Game 7, man. That included steals. He had maybe one of the greatest basketball games of all time. He's on the road in LA. They got no center, and he has a triple-double and completely controls the game, and they win the championship. I mean, that's
Yeah.
unbelievable. But yeah, I
Well,
wore number 10. I still wear number 10 to this day.
well,
You know, I'm all
yeah,
about it.
I got number 10. I used to draw I couldn't afford a Clyde shirt, so I drew the Clyde shirt. Magic marker number 10. And here's the craziest story. I was in middle school and I loved Clyde. I put my 10 powder blue sweatsuit on and I took a magic marker and I literally drew the sideburns. And I looked in the mirror going out, thought I looked good, man. When I got to school, my teacher and everybody was looking at me, what's that on your face? And still to this day, I cannot grow sideburns, right? No hair don't grow on the face over here, but I couldn't be Clyde because you got to have them sideburns. To be Clyde.
There's a lot of other things you had to have to be Clyde too back in the day. But Louis, that's what I love about you, man. I knew you had that bit of craziness in you. That's what I'm talking about, man. And he was just, people don't realize he was the man.
Oh yeah.
He was the man.
And that's the hardest thing. I mean, you in this whole sports world, but that's the hardest thing. People were mad at me for a long time, right? Because when LeBron first 5 years, I had a problem getting LeBron. And I love LeBron, man. Wonderful person, man. But I couldn't get him in my top 25, because I couldn't get past the guys I grew up on, like Clyde and Jerry West and, Earl of Pearl Monroe and Willis Reed. And I mean, you can go on and on. I couldn't get him in my top 25 personally, and it took me a minute to get him to continue to move him up. And everybody was mad at him. What are you talking about? But Clyde was one of my favorites. And my wife, when she grew up, she loved Clyde. She thought she was gonna marry Clyde, but she married Lowe's. So I mean, she married a guy couldn't get no sideburns, man.
She did just fine.
Yeah, she did. And
I tell you, I don't know. I think there's what I respect in athletes is the difference they make. I always tell people, it's like, what's the difference you make? What's the impact? How many people can you impact? It's one of the reasons why I love Magic Johnson. It's my favorite player. Is he's just since day one been making a difference, making an impact. Still is, not to mention what he did for the AIDS virus, but what he's done in communities. I think he's the most amazing athlete in our generation. I know people talk about LeBron and Jordan, but I look at it past that. I look at somebody like him who his own teams, coached, played on the highest level, got the hardware and the rings to boot. College, comes from an incredibly difficult, adverse environment as a kid, very poor. And yet, the businesses he's entered in, he's been an incredible example for young people of color that you can do it all and you can be more than just a basketball player. And has done it in a way where like LeBron's done an amazing stuff as far as owning and building and not only just being a spokesman, but being an owner. But Magic showed you how to do it. And I think he set the tone for that. And it was a real game changer. And he's been really available.
Right.
He's spoken up. He showed up. My favorite of all time is Magic.
Yeah, and then, the thing about Magic, something you mentioned earlier, because we always talk about when I was growing up, my grandfather said, come over here, boy. I got a nugget for you. And I'm looking at his hand for this nugget, and he would tell me something that I didn't understand, but, at the time. But I got to tell you something, get it. I'm looking for a nugget, but he's telling me something about life, and then the commercial with Damian Lillard dropping dimes. So on the show, we try to identify nuggets and identify dimes because earlier you were saying about the process and, everything for Magic Johnson. I mean, everything was up but yet in the midst of all the pain, because he, it was an up and then boom, a crash, right? But then Magic didn't stop. I mean, you look at him now, he's kind of re-evolved, made himself. I mean, and I think all of us, like you say, we get fired, or we lose our jobs, or you lose a loved one. I mean, and we have to continue to, as long as God allows us to be here, we have to continue to grow. So, and so with that point in mind, I mean, what do you think about like the importance of faith and the importance of education and how that process in education, you know, in terms of your family and you know, the steps of where you are and why education was important?
Well, it's interesting. I was, since I was a little kid, my mother was like, "You going to college?" And then when it came time to go to college, she's like, "You've been out in the street, you've been working. If you really don't want to go to college, you don't have to. But if you want to own a company one day and run a company, I don't know that many people, back then that own big companies, multiple companies that don't have some kind of education. But whatever you want to do." And I think that people get confused. I think, listen, if you want to earn a lot, you got to learn a lot. The most important thing about education is, and sometimes you get kind of thrown off sometimes. And I think the education system sometimes fails us because, as a kid, I really struggled with French. I had to learn French. I couldn't even learn English. Now I'm learning French. I would really struggle with chemistry and calculus. But there's plenty of other things. And I think sometimes that's really a deterrent for young kids, is not to let a few course subjects that you really don't like discourage you from education, because learning is really what it's all about. So school is just really a basis to teach you how to learn, which is just inevitable. You've got to be a great learner. If you look at some of the most successful people in any category, they're just people that are very curious and are always trying to learn. And that's what I got out of school. I thought I was going to play in the NBA, Lowe's, to show you how delusional I was. And my mother had only gone to one game. I played basketball like 5 hours a day. And all I really wanted when I grew up was a hoop on my garage, which I didn't have. I didn't have a garage, let alone a driveway. But at some point I wanted a driveway and now I have an indoor full court in my house. So, give you an idea about paths and stupid goals, right? But, my mother goes to this game, and I think I was in 8th grade at the time, getting ready to go to high school. And she goes and talks to the coach afterwards. And we drive home. She's, my mother would always pull over and give me a pinch. She says, if I hit you, you can call child services. But if I pinch you, what are you going to say? My mother pinched me. But, if you're a mom and you pinch your son, it's painful. Anyway, she pinches me and says, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do when you go for it? I said, well, I'm going to probably play in the NBA. I love basketball. She's like, Brandon, there is no white 5'7" Jewish kid in the NBA. So do you intend on being the first one? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you to this experimental school that does not have athletics, because I know what you're going to do. And, me playing for a Brooklyn high school on the varsity basketball team, I have a better chance of jumping off the Empire State Building and landing on my feet. This isn't going to happen. I mean, the talent at a Lincoln or a Lafayette was insane.
Wow.
You know what I mean? There's just so many great players that have gone through there. So she sends me to this pass-fail experimental school. And the most important thing in my life is I learned the importance of learning. And I was able to kind of navigate through some courses that were struggling to me and took them pass-fail, got through it, and highlighted, really get hyper-focused on the stuff that I really was interested in. And it got me much more excited about learning. So my message to people listening is like, don't focus on the things that you struggle learning about. Focus on the things that are interesting to you, that you want to learn more about, and go all the way. Look at Mariano Rivera. He threw one pitch, but he kept learning about that pitch and working at that pitch. Before you know it, he's a unanimous Hall of Famer. So most people, the most extraordinary ones are really good at one thing. And that's because they just keep digging and digging and digging and wanting to learn more about that one thing, which ultimately is what gets you to extraordinary. So for me, I think education, I'm a college fan, even though, it was really tough to go to school and I struggled. And I emphasize the word struggle to get through some of those classes. But I know the importance of learning and all the stuff that comes with growing up in that environment. Now, faith is something I really didn't have much of. Growing up poor, you always feel like you dealt a shitty hand. You always felt like, man, can you believe God? Can you believe the good Lord gave me this empty refrigerator, man, and all my friends got all that food and I got nothing? But, faith is really about being able to see something that you really almost can't see. And faith also is such an important thing. It's something I really learned from Mariano, and really learning about, having faith in God, having faith in you, having faith in your confidence, and having the ability to move forward without even seeing where you're going, knowing that it's going to work out, knowing that, if you do the right thing, work really hard, that you'll find your way. And I think that's an extremely underrated characteristic in success is faith. And any way you can incorporate some faith into your diet, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and you ended up going to school.
Oh yeah, I went to Syracuse.
You see these colors here. Yeah. I mean, these are kind of Nick colors. You see the blueprint kind of Nick colors, but it got some orange in there, man. And I always get harassed by what's his name? A number of people who go to Syracuse. I mean, and because I went to West Virginia, so it's always something. And I lose to this gentleman. He used to work for the state of New York, Rob Kemp. Now he works for in Washington D.C. And we're always betting because he went to Syracuse. We're always betting. If I lose, I'll wear your stuff from your school. And of course, I haven't really won yet. So when West Virginia played in the bowl against Syracuse a couple of years ago, I ended up in a Syracuse outfit, of course.
Yeah, that didn't go well for you. But I tell you, man, I give you a lot of credit, my brother. I really do, man. I don't know if people realize, but you're from the boroughs. Like going to West Virginia, you got to have balls. I mean, that's not like you just went and, that ain't easy to get there. It ain't easy to leave there. It's not, that's a different kind of place. Like I went to Syracuse and I thought, when I told my friends I was going to Syracuse, they looked at me and go, why? Are you out of your mind? Like, what are you going to do up there? There's a bunch of bumpkins up there, but there's nothing going on up there. When you grow up in the boroughs, the only thing you think about is like everything's happening here. Right. There's nothing going on around the rest of the world. The only thing that happens is in these boroughs. There's no reason ever to leave. If you grew up in the boroughs, you think anything different, you're lying. So I told these guys I'm going to Syracuse. I said, listen, not only am I going to Syracuse, I ain't coming back. Take a look at this face. I'm not going back to these shenanigans. I'm moving on up. Well, what's crazy is, I had 760 on my SATs, went to a pass-fail experimental high school. And when I went home and asked my mom how much we can contribute to my college education, she told me that's a really easy answer. 0. Yeah. Don't count on $1. Don't count on 2. 0. I said, well, obviously then I probably can't go to college. She says, no. You're going to go apply to the most expensive school in New York State because they give you financial aid. And let me tell you something. Somebody as poor as you doesn't have the balls to go apply to such an expensive school. And maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe you can go up there and make a sale. I went up to Syracuse. And I made a sale, I remember being in a statistics class, we're doing a regression analysis, and I had all the stats there from the 200 people in the class. And trust me, there was nobody under 9 something on the SATs. Everybody's like, who the hell's got 760 in this class? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. But so, you really, and I can't emphasize, like, listen, it's all about, making things happen and not waiting for things to happen. And, my college tour was, we left at 11 o'clock at night. We got up to Syracuse like 5 in the morning. We had no idea we were going. Changed in a parking lot, went for the interview. We're home for dinner. That was my college tour. Thank God I got into Syracuse. But, I gave that lady a rap of all raps. I told her, I said, listen, this is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. She didn't know it was the only place I'd seen. And I said, if you can figure out a way to get me into this school, I will do 2 things. I will leave no stone unturned. I will use this campus. There's nothing I ain't touching. And I will come back one day and I'll make you proud. What's amazing is about 4 years ago, I got the Ernst Award. It's the highest honor. And there's some pretty big dudes, pretty big names, pretty incredible women that have gotten this award. And I got the highest level of alumni award. And when I get up to give my talk, I said, look, I was just trying to keep my promise. I told you guys that, I'd leave no stone unturned, and I think I have. And I just wanted to come back and let you make sure that, I made you proud. And that's why I'm excited to take this award. And I think that, there are people out there that will give you a break. There are breaks out there to be had. And it's where faith comes in. You have to have faith. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in your ability. And you got to believe in God that, that God's going to steer you and your ability and the faith you have in yourself to someplace great.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And get to the West Virginia piece. The guy who came to visit me at Mount Vernon High School said to me 3 things that I like. Number one, he said there was no crime in West Virginia University. I was like, what?
There's no people either.
And then number 2, he said there was no snow, which he told a little lie about that because it snowed every year I was there. But he got me there. And then number 3, he showed me a film. And inside the film, I didn't know that Jerry West went there. So those 3 things, man, I went for the visit and I saw the Coliseum and I saw the crowd in the Coliseum going crazy. And I was just like, I want to play here, like that. So that's how I got to West Virginia. And, my mother was able to get down. It was crazy just getting there, just somebody dropping me off.
You don't fly into West Virginia.
Well, I drove. Well, first of all, when I went for my visit, they flew me into Pittsburgh. Right. So now I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for the next plane. So we walk out to the ground, we walking out and I see the big plane in front of me. Right. And then it was like the lines on the floor that you walk into. And then the person in front of me made a left. So he made a left and we went a right around the plane. And there was a little plane there. And me and the 2 pilots, I was sitting in the back like a 10-seater. And they said, hey, you want to see? And they opened up the curtain and let me sit in the first seat. And I was watching them fly,
Because that airport, you can't fly in on a big plane.
No, you can't. No. I mean, eventually they had a 40 passenger that you could get on.
I give you a lot of credit, man. But you probably could have gone to a lot of places.
Oh, yeah. I could have went to Syracuse.
Well, obviously, I excuse you for that mistake, but everybody makes one mistake, and I got to excuse you for that. But it's seriously that's a ball move, man. That's a bold move.
And I had a chance to go to. I wanted to go to North Carolina State because one of my favorite players was David Thompson, and I wanted to go there. And
I'm still waiting for him to land. That's how high he was going.
Well, he had a 48-inch vertical.
Oh my God!
Right, and I had a 40-inch vertical.
Really?
Yeah, and so I was like, they were throwing me alley-oops in college, and just throw it in the air, he'll go get it, So I wanted to go there, and then I was smart enough to know North Carolina wanted me, but they had Phil Ford, and he was a sophomore. That I wasn't going to follow up Phil Ford. Right. So I realized that I needed to go somewhere where I needed to be me. And I say the final thing of my reasoning for going to West Virginia, of all the things I said, was the guy who recruited me, who just recently passed, Coach Jim Amick. I mean, he made me feel at home.
Mm-hmm.
He made me feel at home at West Virginia.
I think people, Lowe's, I think that people don't understand in parenting and managing and coaching how important the word safe. Making people feel safe. Like one of the things I've learned in managing people over the years, and managed hundreds of them, and it took me a while to learn this, is that you can beat people up, push them, ask them to do this, that, but the underlying most important thing is, can you make people feel comfortable and safe? It's funny you say that because a lot of coaches miss that. Oh, look at this big school. Can you make me feel safe?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when kids feel safe, boy, you really open up the highway for them. And a lot of kids, because they don't feel safe, that's when problems arise.
Yeah. And I was literally, when I lost the bet and had to wear the Syracuse gear, I was kind of proud because some of the competition that some guys that I met during the course, Roosevelt Bowie,
My man.
Lewis Orr. I mean, we were in a number of high school all-star challenges across this United States, and I got to know them. I mean, really,
How
really.
nice a person is Louis Orr?
Louis Orr is the best. I mean, he's the nicest person you
I
ever
went to
want to
school
meet,
with him,
man.
He actually showed up and went to class.
Yeah,
He's a good dude, man. He was special. Great guy.
Man, yeah, no, that's he was awesome and still awesome. I mean, just great people. When you meet them, you compete against them, right? But at the end of it, you shake hands, right? And it's no animosity, but we were competitors on the floor.
Oh yeah.
And I was down at there was a giveaway every year. One of the trading companies used to give away. They had their charities day, and I used to go down, and a number of coaches and owners of the Giants, owners of the Jets, everybody's down there. Every celebrity is down there, and man, I saw Jim Boeheim, right? So I walk up behind him. This is like a couple of years ago. I walk up behind, tap him on the shoulder, and I said, Coach Boeheim. He said, yes. He turned around and said, yes. And I put out my hand, shake it. I said, Lowe's more like that. He said, oh my God, I'm still having nightmares.
Now, did you ever play at Manley Fieldhouse or?
I did. We played all our games at Manley Fieldhouse, actually.
So that was a nightmare.
Yeah,
Playing
that was a
in
nightmare.
That place was a nightmare.
Yeah,
right?
It was a nightmare.
It was crazy. By the way, I have a very good relationship with Coach Boeheim, and the only point of difference we've ever had, I mean, because I never tell him who to recruit, whatever, was I was coaching in New Rochelle, and we were playing, a few times a year against Kevin Johnson. And I'm like, Coach, this kid's unbelievable. Like, he's posting, he's dropping in threes, he's guarding our point guard, full court, and staying with him. We got to grab this guy. He's going to be a great rebounder. And he's like, yeah, I'm coming down to see him. I'm going to take him. And then we had agreed, not that I had any real say on this, but we agreed he was going to, because Kevin wanted to go to Syracuse. And he doesn't get him. And he ends up going to West Virginia. And I would bring that up because he was such a great college player. And I think a pro for a while. But I would always bring that up. I said, I told you should have taken Kevin Johnson. You should be using my insight for recruiting, Coach. He goes,
you're talking about Kevin Jones, right?
Over the 50 years.
Yeah, Kevin Jones, right?
Kevin Jones, I mean, that's it.
Yeah. And
Kevin Jones is such a great high school player.
His uncle was a great player, along with Gus. When Gus had that 1 year, Gus got cut 3 years and played his senior year at Mount Vernon High School.
Wow.
And had broke the single season record. End up getting a scholarship to USC after playing 1 year and becoming a college All-American, and of course, a great NBA player.
Oh, and, amazing.
Yeah, amazing. And it was a guy, man, that I love, man. In terms of Bill Plez, I don't know if you recall the name, Mount Vernon legend way back in the day, man. And he went up to visit Syracuse, and what's the power forward for Notre Dame back in the day. Man.
Lefty?
No, he's the big guy. He used to post people up. He couldn't jump.
Adrian Dantley?
No. Well, he's kind of a little bully, but he lived in Syracuse. He ended up going to Notre Dame. Now, I don't know how they missed out on him, but
it happens.
Yeah. And
same way we missed out on Brianna Stewart. Imagine that. Jeez.
No, I can't imagine that. I mean, I know my son.
I told Quinn Hills, man, I said, dude, man, get out of my house now. How do you not get this woman? Are you kidding me? I would have set up a tent right on her lawn for 3 years.
Yeah. And
what a great player, man. Meanwhile, you guys, Mount Vernon's unbelievable what's going on there. How great a program that's been created over the years. The legacy, even the women's program, too, has been amazing. I've had some of the women play at my house. It's just amazing how they use basketball to really propel a lot of kids to get scholarships and everything. He's done an amazing job.
Semino's done great job, and of course, my wife. She held her
Legend.
AAU practice at your house.
She's a legend, though.
Yeah, I was down there a bunch of times, and shooting around stuff like that. And
She's
now
amazing, man. I love, especially I'm a big women's basketball fan. I love what she did and what she represented. She brought it. She had a big impact, and a lot of girls are better for it. Love that. So I hadn't really seen a lot of that. You see some guys coaching, but that was the first time I saw a woman. It was all business. She was into it. Damn, I love this. This is cool.
Well, she coached like she played, with that intensity. The first women's state, New York State basketball championships. Went undefeated that year. Tenacious on defense. Heck of a driver to the basket. I mean, just amazing. And she brought that intensity to coaching. Man, she brings that intensity to the family, brings that intensity to work. I mean, it just doesn't disappear.
That's the things like make a difference, make an impact is my mantra. And, you don't realize how you're going to make a difference. You go to some guy's house and I'm watching, but it had a big impact on me it really increased my level of love for women's basketball. I always liked it, moved to loving it. It's like, wow, this thing could be serious. I saw it a little more up close and personal. And then I started really digging into the Syracuse women's program and getting more involved. And now I'm involved with the collective on my website, which I have all these women athletes. First time we've ever done collectibles around women athletes, and trying to convince people that these women are worth investing in. Just like you invest in Michael Jordan, you should be investing in, all these great, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, or whether it's Sue Bird or Diana Taurasi, whatever it is. The women's sport still has a ways to go, unfortunately, but I'm doing my little part.
Yeah, and then you also have my cousin, Tisha Hyman.
Oh, love her. It's my girl. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, who's at Syracuse. I had her on the show. And, hey, when she was like 7th grade or 8th grade, I went to see her in a tournament. And I said, hey, what you think about going to school? She said, oh, I'd love to go to UConn. So so when I was at her senior year and she was making a choice, and I was at the signing at the high school, and I was sitting there, and she turned over Syracuse. I was like, what? Syracuse? Because one of my good friend Rudy Hackett went to Syracuse.
Oh yeah.
And
what's crazy is I went to go see her play in high school once, and what I loved about her, when I played, I would go to the huddle. I wasn't the greatest offensive player, but I would tell the coach, I got such and such. He's like, that guy's 5 inches tall. I said, look, I'll handle him. The rest of you guys figure it out, because if he keeps scoring, we're not going to win. So I would always take the toughest guy, and my offense was always a little wobbly. So I'm watching Hyman in a championship game. She's a point guard. She's a point guard, scoring kind of Kobe-like, I felt like. And I was like, man, this girl thinks she's Kobe. But meanwhile, at one point, the other team had a big girl. So at one point, she's the point guard, and she's guarding their 5. I mean, she's obviously the best player on the court. And she's like the point guard, transition offense. And then on defense, she's guarding their 5. I'm like, I love this girl. I love her game. Like that. And I remind her of that all the time. Like that kind of non-acceptance. You'll do whatever it takes to win. Be whatever it takes. Don't ever lose that moment and that kind of attitude. Believe me, we're laughing about this one day, but we're going to see this. She's a rock star.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to see some great things from Hyman because she's been working hard. And a lot of, listen, you got to play at a good team. Unfortunately, basketball is a team sport, so sometimes your individualism gets a little outweighed if you're not playing with a really good team. But I think this team this year and maybe even next year could be, teams to be dealt with. And she's a superstar. I told her, said anything less than being an ACC All-Star would be disappointing to me. I don't know if that matters for her, but I told her, I said,
Yeah, no, I think she can. I think she can do it. I mean, unfortunately for me at West Virginia, a lot of players that I met over in the past, right? They used to say, "I came to West Virginia because of you," right? And so when I was there, we got good players. We didn't get a whole lot of great players, but down the road, because I went to West Virginia, right? We started to get a lot of great players, but for my 3 final years, we made it to the conference championship every year, even though we were terrible during the season, not very good team, but we were able to elevate, and you have a will to win, which I think Tisha has.
Yeah.
She hates to lose. She has a will to win, and I think that will create a culture by itself when your best player is willing to give it all.
I agree.
Yeah. And so how did you get into now, you started getting into your career? How did you get into that career and then end up where you ended up in this whole memorabilia of sports? And
well, I'll start off by saying, a lot gets talked about with kids is that, you could be anything you want and do anything you want if you work really hard. I don't believe that to be true. I don't think so. And I think we should not tell kids that, because there are some things that just probably not going to happen. Like playing in the NBA. I love my mother. I mean, you got to remember, I'm playing basketball 5-6 hours a day, and my mom's like, "You're not going to the NBA." Now, if you want to keep pursuing it, you can. Maybe I'm wrong, but in the meantime, let's get the plan B set up. Let's get it to something more realistic and focus on some of your strengths. But so I think that, it's nice when I see parents that are just more honest. I don't think taking away your kids' dreams is the goal here. But so for me, like, I was a restaurant guy. Like, I just wanted to run hotels, restaurants, and my dream job was to work for Hyatt. And that's exactly what I did. But I had to leave New York, could not get a job. I got shingles when I was a senior in high school. I think nobody's ever going to hire me. And I worked full time through college, by the way, while I went to college. I mean, Syracuse was not cheap. It wasn't a cheap school. I always say the objective isn't to get into a school. The objective is to stay and graduate from that school and walk away with something. So I knew, like, I wasn't going home to some, rich parent that was going to, like, work me into some of their contacts or work me into their company. I had to get out of this damn school something. I had to walk away with something more than just a piece of paper. Right. And so, I come home and I just could not find a job. Nobody would hire me. I had an accounting degree, and so I ended up going to Baltimore. I worked in a hospital there, and ended up working for the Hyatt. And it was just a really big break. And there were a lot of athletes that would come into some of our restaurants. So I'd meet some of them. And then the real break was I opened up the Hard Rock on 57th Street, where I met a ton of athletes, because nobody cared about the athletes except for me. And then the celebrities would come in, all these rock stars. So that was kind of what was just epic, really. But the guy that comes in one day is Clyde Frazier. I remember he got traded to Cleveland, and he had not been back to New York since. Right. He's 1984. So he comes down, he's sitting down with Erwin Weiner, his agent, and I'm just going crazy. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm going crazy. So freaking excited. And I look back and I was like, almost like it was almost like God connected us, because nobody could care less that he was in their restaurant. And I'm going crazy. And he gives me his number. And sure enough, he goes, "I'm never coming back to New York. Willis traded me. I'm mad. I sold my apartment. I sold my rolls. I'm out of here." I'm like, "Well, listen, if you ever come back, maybe we can connect, but feel free to call, whatever." And he calls. What's unbelievable is 6 months later, I open up one of the first sports bars, and I call Clyde, and he's in New York, and he's looking for something to do. Nobody cares. I said, "Open up this sports bar. Would you consider maybe coming in a couple of times a week?" I hired him for $2,000. He had to work 2.5 days a week, 10 days a month for $2,000. But that was my calling, man. I started marketing Clyde. I was taking Clyde everywhere, and it was getting a lot of attention. And I learned a little bit of what it was like, because, it was, once we got past the celebrity part of it all, I started learning what it was like to be a big name and a celebrity in a town like New York. And I was like, man, I could do this. I could make some money with a guy like this. Right. So that was an amazing start for me. And that's kind of how a lot of ways how I got rolling, because that sports bar in '84, I was just trying to do like what the Hard Rock was, but in sports. So I was always thinking about what else
And at the Hard Rock, the owner wouldn't let me put a TV in. So I was missing all the games, pissed me off. Could never watch a game because I was working every night. And sure enough, we came up with this idea about doing a Hard Rock, but in sports. I know it's hard for people to imagine, but there are only 2 sports bars in the whole country. So everybody would come into this sports bar because we had the only satellite dish in New York, in Manhattan. And if you wanted to watch the West Coast games, all these other games, we were the only person that had it. And cable wasn't even that much in everybody's apartment. So it's really hard to watch the games. And a lot of the athletes and sports marketing and sports people that were in the so-called sports business would come into our restaurant. I'd meet them. And that's why I've met so many people that would come in. I put on their games. And we had this big dish. It'd take me like 20 minutes to find the damn thing on the bird. It's crazy. And that's how I got going, man. I literally was just trying to, when I couldn't open up, when I was going to open up like an ESPN zone, what I did is open up Steiner Associates. And what I was doing player fan mail. I always tell people, it's like, everybody wants the glory, but let me tell you the story here. And the story is like, you got to find value. You got to find a way that you can help somebody. Not what you get out of it, but what you can give to it. And I think it's a big mistake that people make when they see opportunity and you see things that are really exciting in front of you. Think how you can add to it, not what that opportunity can give you. And you'd be surprised how that opportunity will find you and you can mesh into it. And that's what I've been doing my whole life. And that's exactly what I did when I got started. I was like, Lawrence Taylor, what are you doing with those 20 boxes of fan mail? Oh, damn. And, people can say what they want about Lawrence, one of the great people, by the way, great teammate, great guy. His personal life was a little messed up, but he was a good dude. And he felt guilty about throwing out the mail. And he was just getting boxes and boxes. He was like Michael Jordan, but in football. Right. He's like, you would take these boxes? Yeah, I'll open up the mail. I can remember almost like 10 months, all I was doing was opening up Leonard Marshall, Carl Banks, John Starks, all these players' fan mail. But I had something to go to them with. Found these couple sick kids we should respond. Found a couple appearances we need to do. Blah, blah, blah. So it gave me a connection with the athletes, and I served them, and I solved the problem for them. So I always tell people, if you want to get connected into something, figure out how you can serve and be a solution-based business person. How can you solve a problem? How can you do something for someone that they can't do for themselves? The definition of value is doing something for someone that they can't do themselves. That's value. And you can do that as a husband, you can do that as an employee, you could do that as a friend. When you think about some of your best relationships, they're really relationships where you can add the most value, where you're doing stuff for people. You have a great friendship because you can do something to help somebody that they really can't do themselves. Guide them through, help them through, whatever it is. And that's how I got in the sports business. I was just a value prop guy. I'd find even some of the biggest names, I'd find something they need help with, and I'd move to it, and I'd try to figure out how I can help them. And then I'd let my faith and hoping that the right thing happens. And sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't, carry through. Yeah. And then, and you ended up with Steiner, right? Steiner Sports, right? Yep. And then, so talk about a little that process and then into where you are right now. I was growing and, working, 24/7. And I think I was on something. It's easy now to look at autographs and memorabilia, but back in the 90s, it was just a mishmash. But I had a feeling that if I could organize this in a way that maybe this could become something bigger. And I think also, as much as you have hopes and dreams, you got to be realistic. If you want to do something big, you don't want to, you can't micro it. You got to be able to look at the macro of it. And I looked at this thing, I saw a big opportunity. Somebody needed to come in and add something authentic. And I figured out a way to kind of take what was a hobby and turn it into a business and turn it into an industry. And then I was lucky enough in 2000. So, I was lucky. My first player I signed was Mark Messier and Phil Rizzuto. Those 2 lucky breaks. But what people don't realize, I was grinding out 7 years before that. Doing a lot of stuff that, some of it worked, some of it didn't. I was selling closed circuit fights to bars and restaurants, starting to do well. And then Mike Tyson loses his mind and bites Holyfield's ear. That business went to shit. I was like, oh man, imagine I come home and my wife's like, so how's the business going? I was like, well, that plan I had, we were going to have this big Tyson Holyfield fight. We're going to make a fortune. Well, that's, Tyson rapes somebody, he's going to jail, and then he ends up biting his ear when he gets out of jail, and then it really became that business that business didn't work out for me. I mean, I could tell you 20 stories like that, but I found my way. I mean, you gotta get. It's not survival of the fittest, Lowe's, and that's a mistake that people make. It's survival of the flexibility. Survival of the flexible. So you got to get your head. You got to be able to pivot. See the situation, understand it, digest it, and move forward. You can't get caught up. Let your past dictate your future. It's like you gotta keep moving. And I was just one of those guys who was just constantly trying to figure out the next thing and also what people really were looking for. So I got a little lucky. I was a big Yankee fan, and I was lucky enough to get on the Jeter, Torrey, Rivera bandwagon in the 90s and rode that wave. Epic. Just to be in the middle of all that, being a crazy Yankee fan growing up. And then, these guys are talking about me in the locker room every day, and I was creating all these collections around them. And then, I mean, my big thing was I sell the company and become a pretty wealthy guy, but of course I wasn't satisfied with that. And I'm thinking about how I can CapEx it. What can I do? And I start thinking about I got to partner up with these teams, and that's when I created Yankee Steiner, which is a partnership with the Yankees. Sold off the old Yankee Stadium, and then created this partnership with the Yankees that worked out pretty well. And that was the beginning of really the run that most people are aware of, besides having some pretty big name. I think at some point I had about 85 athletes on the contract, from Muhammad Ali, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Hendrik Lundqvist, just you can name them. I mean, there's not many athletes I haven't worked with and played with. At the same time, I was marketing athletes. I've always been a good marketer of talent, which I've learned and started with Clyde. So still to this day, people call me. They want to grow their business. They want to do something to get more attention to their product. And I have a very keen sense of how to go do that on a whole bunch of different levels, using players to grow your business. And so I still do that with the Steiner Agency. Steiner's been sold, so I started CollectibleXchange 3 years ago. I like working. I've been doing it for 53 years. And I still enjoy, now the money is less relevant. Money isn't everything, but, being really poor isn't everything either. So
right.
The goal is to try to find something in between.
Yeah.
But, so I enjoy the influence that I try to help charities, and I'm probably much more motivated about the work I do and the charity and the goodwill that I could do with the businesses that I create, because Lord knows I'm probably not going to give my kids any more money.
So mention your kids.
Can't overspoil them, but it's been fun. Like CollectibleXchange, like everybody's sitting with a bunch of stuff, and I wanted to come up with a better version of eBay. So everybody's sitting with a lot of stuff. So this gives you the ability to go on my site and sell and buy and really create a really fluid, clean, authentic marketplace. And then, one of the things I realized too, and I have to work with so many athletes, is that I gave athletes what I call a PAD, a platform, an audience, and distribution. So I have 80 athletes now that I'm able to create their collectible line with them, and I'm partners with them, as opposed to just buying their stuff and selling it. I partner with them, and they put up their game used and autographed stuff, and I help facilitate that. My hope is that one day there'll be thousands of athletes. I'm working on it, but not bad for a few years, just getting started. It's a new idea, very disruptive, but it gives athletes the power to sell their own stuff under their direction, under their supervision, and be able to have a little platform. So when they come up with unique items and unique things, they have a platform to sell it on, and they have a fan base that's not only their fans from a fandom standpoint, but they're fans of them as far as supporters to buy stuff from them.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. You've been evolving.
I think you have to, man. If you keep moving and you keep focusing on your path, we talked about process earlier, but I tell people, it's like, listen, when you don't want it, you don't want my house, you don't want my business, you want my path. you want to duplicate my path, which part of it is my process. And I always say, progress on your process, progress on your path. Keep improving the path that you're going down. Keep looking for a faster, better, smarter path to go down. That's, beat yesterday, pop. Progress on your path, progress on your process. And then the goals and results, they come around. I think it's good to have goals, but the focus should always be on the path and the process. So I'm always thinking about how to get a little healthier, how to figure out another way to sell, another way to grow, another way to be a better husband. And when you do that, that leads you to those challenges, and that journey leads you to a little bit of happiness too.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I think I got some photos here. So family, your wife.
Yeah. And my wife there at a charity dinner. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you mentioned many individuals. I got a few pictures here. So people, you just sometimes you can say it, but of course I met both of these guys and spent a lot of time with, I've spent some time with Dwight Gooden and also Darryl Strawberry.
One of the great interviews maybe is one that I did with Dwight Gooden right when he got out of jail. And, I knew Dwight when he played on the Mets and to see a brother like that go to jail and knowing how good a guy he is. And this is such an important lesson, which I'd always bring guys like Dwight and Straw to my little leagues and whatever and say, you can be a good person. You could be a good guy and make a bad decision and end up in jail or end up with the wrong people. So it's not, bad things can happen to good people. So making really smart decisions as a youngster and as an adult are critical because sometimes things will take a twist and turn. If you've ever met Dwight Gooden, he's one of the nicest human beings on the planet.
Without a doubt.
He's been in jail and he's got drug problems. And so, who you surround yourself with and who you hang out with are critical, really important. I learned so much from, Darryl Strawberry is probably one of the greatest baseball players maybe I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I did get to see Mickey Mantle play, probably comparable, but think about that. Straw was unbelievable. He's unbelievable. And I'm sure, Lowe's, you've seen so many great talent. There's probably more great talent that never play the game that do play the game.
Yes, that's true.
And that's what's sad is there's probably more better talent that never make the game that do. And
right.
That's got to get you thinking. That's why mental mindset, discipline, and following some of the basic fundamentals, if you want to be extraordinary. And as a parent, it's so important to guide your kids, which is you got to have balls, is everything my mother taught me in a very untraditional way that guided me and enabled me to make a lot of money, even though our circumstances were extremely poor.
Right.
But we never approached life like we were poor.
Yeah, that's true. Well, moms are good at that.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Moms are the most important people on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
We're always going to be a second-class citizen, Lowe's. Anytime, your wife's always going to be smarter than you. You're never going to do what a woman does in a day. It's just not going to happen. We're not going to be as smart as women. So that's why I always kind of, I don't know, women are smarter than us. They do more than us. They're more relevant than us. What else do they want?
Great multitasking. Yeah.
We're never doing what a woman does in a day. It's just not happening. We're just not capable of it. We're a bunch of morons. It's unbelievable. So, we just can't give women and moms enough respect and love. That's what's confusing to me because we need them. They play a vital role. And my mother really drilled that into me at an early age, that how important women are in the dynamic of everything. Not just because they're a woman, but because they are smarter. And that, by the way, there's been studies that have been done. That's not a feeling. That's a fact.
That's fact. Without a doubt. I've read enough about it. So, so remember, the podcast is interactive. So if you have any questions or comments, you can just pop them on the screen and we'll do our best as we come to our final, several minutes here. And, but
I'm an open book, Lowe's. So ask me anything. And, I've always, I assume there's a lot of following of Westchester people. And, I'm a big Westchester guy. I love New Row, love Mount Vernon and everything that those communities represent. And I'll take I'll take groups from those two towns and go against anybody. And I'm a Brooklyn guy. I always think there's nobody that can beat anybody in Brooklyn.
Well,
But those are two communities right away that I've been very involved in and have a lot of respect for. But I'm an open book. Ask me anything if you want. And don't forget to go to CollectibleXchange and pick up a free copy of my book.
And I want to just say, a thing here in regards to a curiosity conversation, because that there you are, and you do such charitable work. And I want to say, I retired from the Boys and Girls Club, now going on 3 years. And I remember I was there, and you came in, you were doing a television show, and you came in and blessed our game room, right? You put up these amazing pictures all throughout the boys, the game room, football players, signed autographs, even Mariano's last pitch.
Plus, we did the elementary school. We did the library over at Mount Vernon.
Yes.
That my wife was had a reading program there. We redid the whole library. How great was that woman? And meanwhile, there was we completely redid the whole library. It was amazing.
Yeah.
They had no books. They had no computers. We brought computers in, books, new desks. That was my favorite hookups. That was great. And Mariano actually came with us to bless.
Yeah. Who was the guy who came? He was with the Giants. I can't remember. He came to the Boys and Girls Club.
What's his name? The defensive back.
Yes.
Gave a great talk. I forget his
he
name.
did.
He played.
Amazing.
He played for a while.
Yeah, we straightened out that game room, and then we were featured on your show.
I did 4 Boys and Girls Clubs, by the way. On that show, I did one in the Bronx. I did one up in Jersey with Victor Cruz.
Yes.
I'm a big Boys and Girls Club. We can't put enough money to Boys and Girls Clubs. It's a safe haven. It's a place where our kids can go and be safe and kind of let their hair down, take a breath.
Yeah.
We can't not do it. These community centers are critical. They were critical for me growing up. That was like, God, thank God that I had a community center to go to.
Yeah, and then plus you topped it off. You gave us a donation of $25,000, in which I'm always grateful for. So thank you for all that you do, man. Serving. You talk about serving earlier, man. Being a blessing. Not only be blessed, but you want to be a blessing.
Well, I'll leave you with this nugget here. And I use this line all the time. And, helping people is not a burden. It's actually an opportunity that'll lead you to sheer joy.
Yeah.
It's the best thing, favorite thing I've ever done. Better than, until you just give and give unconditionally and able to do some stuff. And it doesn't really matter what denomination or how much, whatever. Just any form of giving, whether it's $1, helping somebody across the street. It's really what it's all about. And believe me, I grew up many years like I got to take care of me. I get it, but you're missing out. That's all I'm saying. Like I realized, like thank God somebody woke me up and smacked me on the side of my head and said, "You're missing it." The real game is helping others. The real game, it's joyful. It's like you're not gonna ever have more fun being able to help somebody across the street, helping somebody be able to get to college because they can't afford it. That's the joy. And whatever level you do it on, literally, whether it's just buying a loaf of bread for a homeless person, whatever it is the name of the game. And it's why we're here.
Right.
When you think about it, there's only 2 reasons why we're here. One is to help others, and 2, to get better. We're the only species that can improve and get better. I mean, there are dogs, cats, lions, birds, zebras, elephants. None of them in the thousands of years these species have been around have improved. You're never going to wake up in the morning and your dog would have walked itself, fed itself, is reading New York Times in the corner. Ain't going to happen. You're never going to go look at the fish bowl and all of a sudden the goldfish is doing 4 or 5 different types of backstrokes and breaststrokes. Human beings, on the other hand, is the only species out of thousands that can improve, that can get better, that can deal with hostile environments, can deal with adversity and work its way through. So if you're not working your way through some adversity and you're not getting better, you're missing 50% of the point of why you're here. So if you're not doing it for you or your family, do it for the simple reason that you've been blessed to just be put on this planet. Not to mention, this part of the planet, which is amazing. Because think about some of the other parts of the planet you could have been born on, which is not so easy.
Right.
So when you wake up tomorrow morning, if you're not thinking about how you can help somebody, add some value, or get better, and realize how blessed you are just to be in this game, you're missing it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a big miss.
Yeah. And again, they can go to, what's the site again?
Collectible Exchange or Athlete Direct. And I'm a big LinkedIn guy, so you can always message me on LinkedIn if you got something you want to ask me. But, you go to Collectible Exchange, or if you have something you want to sell or looking to buy something, or just message me on LinkedIn if you got a question, and I answer them all.
Yeah. And then I think we got some more pictures up here. We'll just pop them on real quick. And you,
my guy,
yeah. And we honored him at the Boys and Girls Club at our gala one time. I'm, just an amazing person, man. I mean,
amazing.
Yeah.
He's all in. He does such good work, man. Wow. There's my two guys that really built my career, Jeter and Phil Rizzuto, who was really my first really big time player that I represented, which was Phil Rizzuto back in '94 when he got in the Hall of Fame. And that was just, didn't see that coming. And Yogi was the guy who really introduced me to Phil and talked Phil into letting me represent him. And I had a great relationship with Yogi. And, man, he was amazing to work with. You can't say enough nice things about Bernie. We did so many. That was at a hookup we did at a camp with kids with cancer. We donated a bunch of music equipment. Love Bernie. He's special. Bernard King, just one of the great NBA players, scorers of all time. Nice to see him get in the Hall. And that was a weird night. That night was when Kobe dropped 63 at the Garden. That's Jafet and Mariano Jr.
And you're all smiling.
and what's crazy is, Jafet's like, I want to go meet Kobe. I'm like, man, I want to go home. And he dropped the 63. And what's crazy is, just to give you a quick Kobe story. So we go in the locker room, and I'm beat. You go to a game with Mariano, it's great, but a million people, this, that. So we go in the locker room, and Kobe has got hundreds of people in the press room. And he's like, you got to tell him to wait. This Mariano there. You would think this guy was a dog without. Mariano, can I just ask you a few questions? Would you mind if you give me an autograph? So the guy's like, Kobe, we got to go. He's like, no, they'll wait. I don't get many opportunities. Mariano, can you explain your mindset in the ninth inning? Like, you would think the guy had accomplished nothing. And that was the most amazing message I got that night from Kobe. It's the first time I had met him, that here this guy, even though he's won all the rings and everything, he was still looking for a little edge. And followed up with Mariano a couple weeks later, sent him a signed jersey, and had that conversation with him to talk about his mindset and everything else. So, again, are you a great learner? Because if you're a great learner, you'll be a great earner, and you can reach extraordinary. And I think people don't talk enough about Kobe's curiosity and interest level to get better. They talk about the hard work part, but not his curiosity enough.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's a great story.
Good story, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Night. And I mean, this has been awesome too. And my son-in-law, his father loved the picture.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what he did with his other one, but he loved that picture of John Starks.
And John Starks is amazing. I mean, Starks he's a legend, and he's got a great story too, man. I mean, he's just a great soul, does such great community work, was a great player, represented the Knicks well. Not easy. Yeah. It's not easy playing in this town, and he's a good dude, good solid guy, and I was lucky to meet him early in his career, and I've had a great relationship with him over the years. He does amazing work with his foundation too.
Yeah, definitely. I've had him. He's been in quite a few of my galas, golf outings. We're on a call along with Alan Houston, a men's group. Yeah, I was talking to Alan. Called me yesterday about something that he's working on with his Fizzle project. And I just since I retired from the Boys and Girls Club, and got into this whole thing on communications, and wrote a book a few years ago, and I want to just be able to help people. You learn so many things, you have so many experiences, and you just want to give back and help people grow. So I'm trying to help. I'm trying to figure out how to grow this. How to be better at this. This is entering my third season here, and I've had a number of tremendous guests, including yourself, are just amazing. I don't know how you can not come on and hear what you're saying and pick up those nuggets or those dimes. You know
what I'm doing, Lowe's? I'm going into grade schools now to talk. I mean, I speak around the country, and it's fun, and people pay me good money to do it. But I love going to speak to 5th and 6th grade classes and talk to these kids about leadership. I think we can't spend enough time with, basically 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds and explain their responsibility. More importantly, not the, how, even as a 10-year-old, how these kids can be better leaders, represent, do more. At 10, I did. So I'm not looking to throw too big a load on it, but the conversations with these kids have been amazing. It's been fascinating, and it's inspired me to maybe go and do more next fall when school opens up again. But generally, that's not my MO to go and speak to 5th graders, 6th graders. But I just enjoyed it so much. I'm thinking about I'm going to do a bunch of it and contemplating writing a book about leadership for 5th graders, 6th graders.
Well, that's interesting because that's how it started for me. It started New York Knicks win the NBA championship. I'm in 5th. The first one I'm in 5th grade, I think. Second one, I'm in 6th grade. And every day my teacher used to ask us, the homeroom teacher used to ask us, what are you going to be when you grow up? And everything I seen on television, I wanted to be until I saw the Knicks parade on the black and white. I didn't know what color the confetti was, but, I went to school saying, and I had some athleticism, right? So I go to school and I tell my homeroom teacher, I know what I want to be. And she said, okay, what is it today? And I said, I want to play for the New York Knicks. I want to play in the NBA. And can you tell me what I need to do? And she said, you need to graduate elementary school. You need to graduate middle school. You need to graduate high school. And you need to get into college. I was trying to use sports as a way of not going to school. But everybody I asked, my gym teacher, everybody I asked, when I told them what I wanted to do, they said the same thing.
Good advice.
Yeah. So you assume that it's too soon at 5th and 6th grade to talk to elementary school kids, but it's not. It's actually a time to sow that seed. Exactly. And to water that seed. Yeah. So
and I think another good question is not what you want to be when you grow up, but what kind of person you want to be, not what do you want to do, what occupation. A lot of emphasis on your occupation and what kind of money or, what that kind of thing when you grow up, but what kind of person do you want to be? Is another question I wish more parents would ask younger kids.
Yeah, man, you Brandon, you gave a lot of nuggets today.
You told me that, you told me. I think it was your dad would always drop some nuggets on you.
My grandfather, yeah, because I go to North Carolina and spend the summer with my grandparents. My mom used to go there for 4th of July, have the big celebration, and then she would go back home and leave my brothers and my sisters with my grandmother and grandfather. And I would just watch him, how he planted the vegetables in the garden, how he watered them, and, how he treated them. And then see him go off to the pulp mill where they made paper, right, and come back home working hard. And he was a big baseball fan. And I used to sit next to him while he watched the baseball game, and he would tell me about, the different players and stuff like that. And so I started out playing baseball, pitching and playing shortstop. So that's how it started for me. With my grandfather.
That's amazing. To go full circle, it doesn't matter where you're at. What matters is what you want to accept. And I always tell people the grass is not greener over there. The grass is greener where you water it.
That's right.
If it is greener over there, that electric and water bill is awfully high. There's a price to pay.
Yeah, it's true.
Increase your level of non-acceptance. Put your foot down, and you'd be surprised how things could start to change. Because once you do that, you start thinking about the things you got to do, like what you did even when you were younger. Mm-hmm. What do I got to do to you got to graduate elementary school. So you not want to accept flunking out and not going to school anymore. And then you did something about it. You probably found a couple of smart kids to help you hang out with. I always found smart kids to hang out with because I was an idiot. So I hung out with some smart kids. They were a little nerdy, but hey, they helped me get through school. And I knew it was important. So they tutored me, they'd show me, and hung out with them. They weren't always the most popular and favorite kids, but they were smart. You do what you got to do to get what you want to do, and to follow your path.
Yes. So Brandon, I want to thank you, man, for taking time out of your busy schedule, man, coming on, spending some time with me. I definitely want to pick your brain about how I can move forward and get better, and keep taking care of my cousin over there. Make sure.
Yeah, there's a process, these pods, but I think it's a great way for people to get a little more learning. Going in, there's some great people doing pods, and this is a great pod, good platform, and like everything else, you got to keep working on it. Consistency over time equals credibility, and you just got to keep working at it. So I'm pleasure to be with you today. I love all the work you've done and we'll continue to do it. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. I got the great Archie Talley on next week, and it's going to be amazing. Archie Talley has a great story, and then following him, I have Dr. Nicole Hollingsworth on the podcast after that, and it's just going to be amazing. Brandon was amazing today, man. Look, this is one. Many of these you should recommend, because Brandon was dropping so many nuggets, man, so many dimes a day, man. You got to really listen to what he's saying. You got to listen to this story, man. It's just awesome today, this morning. And I know this is a special, this is a special 4th of July special. Next week, I'll be back on Sundays. But I didn't want to interrupt your holiday, so I thought I'd come on this morning. And I realize that people will get on, and then there are people who will get on later. So thank you very much. God bless you guys, man. Enjoy your family this weekend. I love you guys, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.